The story opens with Shin sleeping through multiple alarms, completely unaware of an important meeting scheduled that day. Meanwhile, we are introduced to Hizumi, his girlfriend, who is out with a boyfriend she regards as unhelpful. Shin is shown rushing frantically through the city streets. Yet despite his hurried efforts, he arrives an entire hour late. His alarm clock, which he set diligently, failed to wake him. He laments his failure as a boyfriend, realizing Hizumi has been waiting for him during their long-anticipated date. When he finally calls her, Hizumi regards him with a cold, disappointed stare. She questions whether he slept properly last night and if he had drunk any caffeine, hinting at her concern. She further inquires if he had set the alarm, which he confirms he did. Still, despite all his preparations, he could not fulfill his simple responsibility of waking up on time. Hizumi then mocks him by imagining how he would fare as a full-time office worker for 2 years, sarcastically pointing out that, given his unemployment and perceived uselessness, such a scenario is unlikely to concern him. This derision visibly shakes Shin, who stares blankly, trembling as he breathes heavily, almost on the verge of tears. Hizumi, however, remains unfazed. She merely smiles and takes Shin's hand, pulling him along behind her. Unbeknownst to him, she enjoys giving him this treatment, seemingly deriving pleasure from exerting control and teasing him. Is she a Yandere, a Sooner, or perhaps a mixture of both? The date they had planned was something Shin had eagerly looked forward to and personally vouched for. Seated together, Shin excitedly discusses the film they are about to watch, raving about its popularity and sharing insights about its plot and humor. As the movie begins, Hizumi appears to enjoy it, but suddenly her gaze catches something that makes her smile. To Shin's surprise, he nods off, nearly dropping his popcorn as he falls asleep right in the middle of the film. Hizumi, taking the popcorn from him, leans forward with a contented smile, quietly admiring him snoozing. Her words earlier make him wonder whether she truly likes him or if her smile hints at something deeper. After the film ends, Shin hurriedly apologizes for falling asleep, apologizing since he was the one who suggested they watch it together. Hizumi points out repeatedly that it's already enough, and she doesn't mind his dozing. With a calm expression, she admits she is quite satisfied regardless. While she finds the movie amusing, she indicates she saw something far more intriguing, something that sparks her interest more than the film. Shin is confused, eager to know what she means, but Hizumi refuses to share, hinting it's a secret she intends to keep. She reminds him that sleeping during their time together has its consequences. As their food arrives, Shin quickly devours his meal, desperate to finish and perhaps prompt her to talk about the movie or her thoughts on the scenes she watched. Once done, he eagerly inquires about her impressions, seeking to understand her perspective on both the film and the moments she found particularly interesting. Shin believed his girlfriend would be pleased and content with his efforts. However, what he failed to realize was that her comments about his quick eating were not praise, but a gentle reminder to slow down and synchronize his pace with his partner during the meal. She also questioned his habit of initiating one-sided conversations while she was busy chewing, sensing her dissatisfaction. Teasing him with a touch of sharpness, she sarcastically suggested that perhaps he preferred to talk at her while she simply listened, as if testing her patience and nerves. Shin wondered whether her harsh words were meant to hurt her or simply reflect her frustration. Sitting across from her, he hurriedly apologized, not intending any harm, yet his words made him feel nervous and vulnerable. Her laughter echoed, as she kept repeating his sharp remarks throughout the day, mockingly treating them like a toy. Shin's eyes welled with tears as he reflected on his numerous missteps, feeling disappointed with himself during what should have been a special date with Hizumi. His failure after failure had cast a shadow over the day, making him question his worth and usefulness. Visibly shaken, Shin's trembling figure prompted Hizumi to apologize and dismiss her own harsh words, recognizing that his actions were unintentional. She understood that he was simply overwhelmed, especially when it came to his favorite subject, their shared moments. She advised him to breathe and enjoy his meal calmly. An awkward silence followed as she finished eating, leaving Shin to wonder if she had forgiven him or was simply resigned, constantly trying to read her distant expressions. As they left the restaurant, Hizumi insisted on paying for their meal, although Shin expressed his gratitude and promised to return the favor later. Yet, as always, he found himself captivated by her eyes, feeling as if they could see right through him. Hizumi complimented their dinner as one of the tastiest she had enjoyed in quite a while, smiling softly towards Shin. However, he thought her expression and smile seemed unreadable, leaving him puzzled. After walking her to the bus stop, Shin continued to apologize profusely, acknowledging his mistakes and the trouble he caused. He feared she was disillusioned with him, seeing him as useless and destined to be abandoned. Hizumi, however, spoke of someone repeatedly making the same mistakes, craving forgiveness, and looking forlorn all day, as if uncertain whether anyone could truly accept such a person or find happiness despite their flaws. Her words struck a chord in Shin. Faced with this harsh truth, Shin hesitated, and, sensing the end of something between them, gently raised his head as if to say goodbye. Yet, in a sudden moment of levity, her phone buzzed with a teasing picture of his amusing, stumbling face. Her playful smile contrasted sharply with the weight of the earlier conversation, leaving an unspoken tension lingering between them. Hizumi wanted Shin to know she had enjoyed their time together, emphasizing she harbors no ill feelings and apologizing for making him anxious several times during the day. She softly drew closer, leaning toward him while softly expressing her affection, asking for forgiveness for her recent actions. Her small giggles and faint laughter contrasted with her composed and cold demeanor as she maintained eye contact. Shin, skeptical of her words, admitted he liked her in turn, but they were interrupted by the arrival of the bus, signaling goodbye. With a silent hope to meet again, Shin was close to tears, feeling overwhelmed by their farewell. He remarked on her departure as strangely poignant, recalling her usual words, "I will see you again," and wondered what she saw in someone like him. Unaware, he found himself growing even more attached, as her desire to see him again suggested she valued him despite his flaws. Deep down, Shin aspired to become someone worthy of her, even just a little, hoping to shed his feelings of uselessness and improve himself for Hizumi's sake. Meanwhile, on the bus, she admired the photos she had taken and the moments that revealed her amusement at his pitiful, almost begging face, which she described as giving her happiness, satisfaction, and a kind of sweet pleasure. This led to the question, was her affection based on his innocent nature or on his perceived uselessness? A few days later, we see Hizumi working on her computer when she calls Shin, who had recently caught a cold. She expressed her concern, noting how unfortunate it was that he was infected. Shin weakly replied that his condition prevented him from doing anything, and Hizumi promised she would visit him later since now she couldn't help much. After a brief trip to the pharmacy, she arrived at Shin's apartment, where he was sweating and coughing badly from his fever. He apologized for the trouble he was causing her. Hizumi observed that he looked entirely run down, emphasizing his unkempt state. She handed him medicine and mentioned it was her first time visiting his apartment. Unfortunately, her impression of it was disappointing. The place was cluttered, with broken and rotten items strewn about, resembling a dilapidated, neglected space. She teased him, implying that his lifestyle reflected his current condition, which struck him painfully. Shin explained he had been too busy with work to keep himself tidy, and over time, neglect had become his routine. Hizumi, however, refused to accept his self-deprecating explanations and reassured him that she didn't mind the mess at all. She offered to prepare some meals in advance and stay to look after him, urging him not to waste her cooking. He gratefully agreed, still secretly wishing to overcome his feelings of worthlessness and prove himself capable of truly caring for her. As she prepared to set a timer for her cooking, her attention was suddenly drawn to something noticeable in the room, hinting at an unresolved issue or unexpected discovery. She immediately picked up his high school yearbook, and upon examining the photos closely, she realized he hadn't changed much over the years. Yet, her eyes hinted that his mindset had shifted significantly since those days. During his high school years, his life as a student had been far from smooth. When he finally graduated, he hoped things would improve even just a little. However, after leaving school, he faced a relentless boss at his workplace who constantly criticized and scolded him. Unable to endure the constant fits, he gave up after 2 years. Now, he finds himself contemplating how his life has turned out, feeling increasingly like a useless person. With a light-hearted chuckle, Hizumi notes that he once believed adulthood would bring happiness. In truth, he had failed to think carefully about his choices and misjudged his career prospects, ending up unemployed with a naive outlook on life. She acknowledges this with a sad smile. Yet, she considers his current situation as a positive turn, as he has learned to enjoy her home-cooked meals, which she happily serves. She wonders how Shin perceives her cooking. As he tastes her food, he is visibly captivated, praising its flavor and deliciousness. Hizumi feels pleased, knowing he genuinely enjoys her cooking. As Shin finishes his meal, Hizumi quietly asks about his high school days and reflects on her own youth. She ponders how he views her past, her teenage years, and the course of her love life. She invites him to imagine what kind of girl she was back then. Curious, Shin readily agrees, asking what kind of love she experienced in her youth. He invents a scenario where he and Hizumi are in a classroom, with him playfully mocking himself for being useless. In jest, she teases him that from now on, she would enter his room every night to teach him everything from the basics, studying patiently and eagerly, giggling softly. Shin blushes instantly, trying to deny her playful accusations involving her in his fantasies before falling asleep. He's described as a strange person by Hizumi. However, that night he is haunted by a nightmare. The dream floods back memories of childhood rejections and being demeaned as dirty and worthless. He relives scenes of his boss shouting and mocking him for his inefficiency, calling him useless. The nightmare awakens him with heavy breathing. Little does he know, Hizumi watches over him as he sleeps, silently wondering what he's dreaming about. She notes that his condition has worsened, suggesting he has a fever and might pass away alone if no one is there. She admits she would prefer to see him die in her presence, suggesting she finds some strange amusement in the idea. That thought leaves an impression on her, and she mentally records this haunting image, wishing to ingrain it deep into her memory. Shin found the idea of it all quite unsettling, though he was merely teasing her. Despite that, he sincerely apologized for making her sleep on a dirty bed, knowing it must have been uncomfortable, especially in such a cramped room. Hizumi, however, didn't find the inconvenience bothersome. She saw it as a way to help him recover. She gestured subtly, wanting to share her peaceful, comforting presence in his space, even if it might have been tidier. She had already prepared everything in advance, showing her thoughtfulness. That night, Shin couldn't help but feel ashamed of himself, wishing to change and become someone worthy of Hizumi's affection. Yet, he wondered if opening up about these feelings would cause her to see him as a useless, dirty burden and prefer to stay away. When morning arrived, Shin unexpectedly felt better. Hizumi commented that it was the first time she'd spent the night at her boyfriend's place. Sadly, she needed to leave to tend to her work, and she expressed her hope that he would take care of himself. Hearing this, Shin was left contemplating whether she might feel lonely as she prepared to go. Then, she suggested she might come back later in the day to stay over again, leaving the decision to him. It was a way for him to prove he was not a useless person and to show he deserved her company. Meanwhile, Shin was anxious, doubting whether he could make the right choice. That night, feeling insecure, he sent her a message saying he was doing well and rested up, which made Hizumi feel a bit guilty, wishing she could have stayed with him longer. As days went by, Shin decided to invite Hizumi to a game center. Though she hadn't played much recently, she didn't dislike the idea of a fun date. He enthusiastically talked about his favorite games over the phone, describing himself as a chatterbox. When they finally met for their outing, surprisingly, Shin arrived early. Hizumi, curious, wondered why he was already there before her. Since he had invited her out, Shin felt it would be rude to be late and had struggled to wake up, checking 3 clocks before finally getting ready. He was eager to show her the exciting arcade he loved, pointing out the latest trendy games and marvelous attractions, aiming to give them a memorable experience. Shin reflected on the hardships Hizumi had endured to see all his weaker sides. That moment, he wanted to impress her and shed his shameful image of inadequacy, hoping to be recognized for his efforts. Without hesitation, he proudly demonstrated his gaming skills, impressing Hizumi, who watched with a mixture of awe and disapproval. She applauded his abilities but also seemed annoyed, pointing out that he hadn't just invited her to showcase his talents. Instead, he had left her standing behind him, feeling excluded for the entire time. He tried to convince himself that his intentions were not to embarrass her, even though he secretly aimed to boost his own confidence. Standing still and contemplating his existence, he responded faintly, "Certainly not to make her look bad. She just pretends to misunderstand my motives and wants to try other activities." Shin didn't dwell on this. He saw it as an opportunity to showcase his cool side to her. During their playful moments, Hizumi maintained a composed appearance, striking zombies confidently while coaching her boyfriend to stay calm. As they engaged in a fighting game, Shin struggled, complimenting Hizumi and wondering why he wasn't winning. He requested more matches, which Hizumi accepted eagerly. Even in punching games, his strength lagged behind that of an average man, and he winced from the pain. Hizumi, in contrast, performed with full strength, thinking that even if her boyfriend had a job, he would still have a higher strength rating. Shin brushed off this comparison, avoiding discussions about his weaknesses. His attention then shifted to a claw machine, analyzing the mechanics and imagining how winning a prize could demonstrate his masculinity and appreciation for Hizumi's efforts. Unbeknownst to him, she succeeded on her first try, leaving Shin feeling defeated, yet he still complimented her as a remarkable person. As the day progressed, they continued playing, and Hizumi seemed to enjoy herself while watching Shin, still eager for their next activity and ways to show off his manliness. However, Shin's attempts to impress fell short, and he suddenly felt gloomy. Despite his greater experience in these games, he couldn't secure victory and felt disheartened. Soon, Hizumi praised his kindness and acknowledged his skills, noting that he often held back to give her a fair chance. Shin played along, agreeing with her observations. Then, he noticed the toy she was happily holding, only to see it was damaged. He insisted she exchange it, but she declined, saying she liked the toy and was content with it. He wondered if there were other similar toys, more attractive, and questioned her reasoning. She insisted on fixing it herself, given that sewing was her hobby, and she saw it as an opportunity to practice her skills. She expressed her love for engaging in hobbies, calling that feeling love. Whether through victory or through effort that seemed to go unrewarded, what mattered most was the time spent. She believed that, ultimately, that time was valuable and worth every moment. Shin agreed, valuing the moments they shared. As they prepared to leave, Hizumi went to the bathroom and asked him to wait. He suddenly spotted a machine offering a heart-shaped ring as a prize. When she returned, Shin surprised her by offering her the ring, causing her shock upon recognizing where it came from. He explained that she might like such things and that receiving one could bring her happiness. Hizumi smiled warmly and jokingly commented on how cheap the gift looked, teasing whether, at his age, he was already falling for the cliché of giving a girl a ring as a token of romance. Shin responded with a nervous smile, internally questioning his own judgment, convinced that no mature woman would be pleased with such a childish present. Although Hizumi never outright expressed dislike, it was clear she wouldn't ever wear the ring. After their date, she bid farewell to Shin, leaving him to reflect on the situation, as was often the case in his life, feeling that everything remained as feudal and traditional as ever. He wondered whether he could truly become a suitable boyfriend for her, feeling self-deprecating about his worth. The thought crossed his mind that he might be useless if she were to eventually leave him. He shook his head, refusing to dwell on doubts, and reassured himself that he didn't need a love heart symbol, encouraging himself to become a better person. He resolved to graduate from being unworthy and promised to give her a proper ring next time, only to realize he first needed to find a part-time job. At home, Hizumi hesitated about wearing the ring outside, but she understood its sentimental value. She placed it on for her remote work that day, feeling a subtle sense of connection. Days later, Hizumi received a notification. Shin had invited her to a karaoke session. She wondered what songs he might sing and how he would perform. When the karaoke date began, Shin's voice sounded somewhat off, which caught Hizumi's attention. He seemed nervous, making excuses for his shaky performance and questioning whether he could sing well. Hizumi sensed he was hiding something and watched him carefully as they entered the karaoke room. Shin appeared to have confidence, hoping to score high points and avoid humiliating himself publicly. However, to his surprise, his singing turned out quite terrible, resembling something middle schoolers might perform. Despite earning high scores, the experience was far from enjoyable for Hizumi, who found his rendition difficult to listen to. Shin, eager to impress, believed that blending all sorts of music styles might have helped him create an enjoyable song. Confident she would appreciate his effort, he waited for her praise, which Hizumi subtly played along with. Suddenly, her demeanor shifted drastically, her expression turning Yandere-like. She questioned his intentions, upset that he had made her listen to a song she was unfamiliar with for more than 10 minutes, as he clearly got carried away. She wondered aloud how much more praise he expected from her, and pointed out that he had discussed musical details she didn't understand. She wondered if he truly wanted her to listen to more of such songs. Shin attempted to praise the song, calling it pretty cool, but Hizumi apologized, hinting she might not have liked it very much. Her words were sharp, making Shin shiver with embarrassment and leaving him uncertain about his next move to avoid further humiliation. Hizumi reassured him that he didn't need to apologize, affirming that her earlier compliment was genuine. Still, she urged him to listen to the entire song, from the beginning to the very last note, questioning whether he could endure the embarrassment so far into his performance. Despite everything, Hizumi enjoyed the song and Shin's singing. She appreciated his lively, energetic voice and the enthusiasm he displayed throughout the performance, feeling a sense of admiration for his effort and spirit. By the end, Shin was utterly exhausted from Hizumi's praise. Despite feeling embarrassed, he dismissed himself, calling himself an idiot. Her noticing his trembling voice and how much he was sweating prompted him to rush away. He headed straight to the bathroom, but suddenly felt faint. His vision blurred, and he seemed to lose his way. Realizing he had left his phone behind, he couldn't reach Hizumi. His past trauma suddenly resurfaced as dark figures appeared, whispering negative words about him, urging him not to move forward as he is a worthless person. His sight flickered, and he saw their mocking laughter echoing in his mind. Fear overwhelmed him. He trembled as he struggled to find a way out. His troubled mind pushed him to run, feeling unworthy of Hizumi's companionship. Near falling apart, he almost tripped, but Hizumi caught him unexpectedly, startling him. As they returned to the room, she gently tried to calm him down. Noticing he was late and drenched in sweat from his anxiety, she did her best to soothe him. She found his sweating quite suitable, as it seemed to give him enough energy to attempt another song. Suddenly, Hizumi recalled the time she had invited him to the movies, mentioning that the theme song was sung in English. She then sat beside him, describing the song as one that celebrates happiness, and she insisted they sing it together. Performing their first duet made Shin nervous, causing him to barely voice his part. Hizumi sang with such grace and tenderness that her voice added a gentle vibrancy to his. Their shared moment was a memorable one, filled with warmth. Afterwards, she playfully criticized his vocals, calling them a mess, but ultimately appreciated his originality and authentic touch. On her way home, she listened to the song he had just sung, happily vibing along as she realized it wasn't so bad after all. She joked that it felt quite typical of middle school students, feeling satisfied that their date had been a success. As days went by, Shin seemed eager, already planning his outfit for their next date with Hizumi. He was excited about impressing her and hoped he would look cool in her eyes. The next morning, Hizumi waited patiently for Shinun, wondering if he had already woken up. To her surprise, he arrived early, although his appearance caused her to hide her laughter. He was dressed awkwardly like a hippie, proudly showing off his outfit, which made her question his fashion choices. The day before, he had been wandering around the mall, pondering his upcoming interview. During that walk, he had noticed an advertisement implying that women might find it embarrassing to walk alongside a poorly dressed partner. This made him worry that Hizumi might think he is unfashionable, potentially leading to a breakup. Ultimately, he decided to buy a flashy, somewhat tacky outfit and even began searching online for tips to style his hair better. It appeared his main motivation was to avoid bringing shame to Hizumi-san. For Shin, he believed he looked pretty good, which lifted his spirits. Curious about his girlfriend's opinion, he turned to her, hoping for validation. She exclaimed how fashionable he looked, brightening his mood instantly. However, her expression soon shifted to one of seriousness and disapproval. She pointed out that his style was quite radical and emphasized how cool he appeared. She criticized his over-the-top jacket and the old pair of pants he wore underneath, which she said suited him all too well. Hearing this, Shin was taken aback, realizing that perhaps his outfit was not so stylish after all. Suddenly, he noticed the stares of strangers, whispers and disapproving gazes directed at his unusual attire, which made him feel hurt. He apologized to Hizumi-san, admitting he had no real sense of fashion. Seeing her concern, she kindly offered to help him pick out some new clothes. Confused, he asked if she knew much about fashion. She admitted she didn't, but she could probably teach him a thing or two, as long as it stayed fairly normal. Soon, they arrived at another section of the mall, where many shops for men like Shin felt intimidating. A lively shop assistant suddenly greeted them, causing Shin to feel flustered and struggle for words. Moments later, he moved away from the counter, only to overhear the staff and women gossiping about how eccentric and unsuitable his appearance was. They spoke dismissively of him and refused to walk next to him, noting his nervous demeanor. Hizumi-san observed him, then gently took his shoulders, stepping into a role of support. She began to examine his clothes, checking the color of his wristband and pondering what outfit would suit him best. Shin kept focus, feeling his personal space shrink with each move. He was even more surprised when she touched his muscles, inspecting how slender he was. She suggested he wear more fitted, slim clothes to match his build. He was struck by her detailed attention and noticed the beauty of her hair. As she approached his face to examine him, he wondered why his cheeks were suddenly flushed. He struggled for words, attempting to make excuses, but he was utterly captivated by her radiant skin and gentle features. Later, they continued shopping and tried on outfits together. Shin saw his girlfriend as a totally different person, her fashion sense clearly shaped by her daily experiences, and he couldn't help but admire her beauty. Still, he felt a growing distance between them, as if her figure from behind was slipping further out of reach. In the end, he found a jacket that fit him perfectly, and a wave of confidence washed over him. He eagerly suggested they take a photo together, but she politely refused. Shin felt a pang of sadness, mildly chastising himself for rushing ahead of the situation. Hizumi, however, gently explained that she was not fond of having her photo taken and apologized for her reluctance. Shin marveled at her beauty and wondered why she was uncomfortable with the camera. As they entered their final store, a staff member approached Shin again, causing him to momentarily lose composure but quickly regain his calm. Hizumi looked back at him and, surprisingly, saw him engaged in a lively conversation with another woman. She was stunned and her expression subtly saddened by this unexpected scene. To her surprise, she approached Shin wearing a hoodie featuring his favorite hero. Instantly, he lit up and, at her suggestion, bought it right away, delighted by her thoughtful gift. Her words of praise and satisfaction brought a gentle smile to her lips. As the day drew to a close, Shin appeared genuinely happy about their outing and shopping trip. She then started teasing him, pointing out his childish hoodie, which seemed to somehow undermine the effort they'd made to coordinate his jacket. Despite her remarks, she insisted that his self-satisfaction was what mattered most. She found his boyish tears and overly eager enthusiasm charming, considering them some of his most attractive qualities. Shin was left momentarily stunned and puzzled, unsure whether her teasing was criticism or a compliment. When they parted ways a few days later, Shin prepared for a part-time interview. Though it was a minor position, memories of his previous, traumatic job haunted him, making him hesitant to work again. Still, for the sake of his relationship and personal growth, he was determined to shed his sense of uselessness, something he believed Hizumi would approve of. Later, Shin decided to invite Hizumi to an amusement park, confident in his plans. He had researched thoroughly and arranged everything to ensure their day would be unforgettable. On the morning of their outing, he felt assured he could guide her through the fun, wanting her to enjoy every moment. During their walk, Hizumi noticed a group of students pacing back and forth and approached them, offering to help capture a commemorative photo, since they also wished to take pictures. Shin watched from a distance and saw the students volunteer, but Hizumi declined, reaffirming her dislike of photographs. This refusal was a turning point for Shin, who had never succeeded in getting a single picture of them together since their relationship began. He wondered how he could persuade her to allow at least one memory in the form of a photo. As they moved to the first ride, the roller coaster, Hizumi expressed concern, recalling Shin's past difficulty with motion sickness. He tried to reassure her, but deep down, he knew he was not good with rides. The nausea was overwhelming, and he desperately wanted to hide this vulnerable side from his girlfriend. He exuded confidence as he took some medicine to combat his travel sickness beforehand, yet it quickly became apparent he wasn't entirely prepared. His face betrayed him throughout the entire journey, twisted in discomfort. Meanwhile, Hizumi appeared unfazed, simply enjoying the ride without a hint of concern. When it came to an end, she stepped in to assist and guide Shin toward the bathroom. After they shared water and more medicine, she criticized him for only pretending to be good at things, urging him to be honest if he truly struggled. His spirits plummeted when they discovered that the next tourist spot was already fully booked, making his plans seem pointless. He blamed himself for their missed opportunity, feeling responsible for their dashed hopes. Trembling and filled with regret, he apologized for revealing such a weak side. Watching his distress, Hizumi gently wiped away his tears and reassured him, saying everything was fine. She also admitted that she hadn't expected much from him, nor had she thought he was particularly cool. Yet, she was willing to let him become more dependent on her, provided he would show his less-than-stellar side openly. She promised to support him regardless. For Hizumi, witnessing his sincere apology was enough to bring her contentment. She then asked him to continue accompanying her, as she wasn't familiar with the area. Determined to make up for his earlier mishap, especially the vomiting, Shin's confidence grew. When they attended another dance event, Hizumi was excited about participating, but Shin hesitated, showing no eagerness. Unfazed, Hizumi explained that since he was her designated escort, he was also expected to dance with her. Her words motivated him, pushing him into action. Even if his movements and voice remained timid and small, he found himself embarrassed by his clumsiness. Soon after, a group of former high school classmates recognized them, which resulted in Shin hurriedly taking a photo alone. As he excused himself to the bathroom, Hizumi was left alone but was approached once more by one of the high schoolers. She was struck by Hizumi's beauty and asked politely why she avoided being photographed, apologizing for the sudden intrusion. She explained that she had noticed Hizumi's reluctance to be captured in pictures, despite her attractiveness. Hizumi revealed that she personally disliked seeing herself in photos, which made the high schooler reflect. She then shared that she enjoyed looking at pictures with her friends because such moments helped preserve their feelings and memories. The story then shifts to Sarah, who is approached by the narrator asking about her situation and if she has any problems she wants to share. Upon hearing this, she sighs heavily, irritated, and doubts the narrator's intentions. She suspects he merely wants to appear sympathetic, questioning whether he expects something in return for his kindness, even hinting that she might give in just to please him. Sarah's day was marred by another round of harshness and pain. After school, her mother once again beat her, leaving bruises and tears in her wake, her body aching from the relentless assault. The day proved to be yet another unpleasant ordeal, as her mother's foul mood cast a shadow over everything. During classes, she recalled the encounter with the guy at school. He had approached her with an unsettling persistence, which she swiftly dismissed as intrusive and inappropriate. She wished desperately that nothing adverse would happen tomorrow. As dawn broke, her fears seemed to materialize. The guy appeared to be following her, his curiosity evident. Sarah questioned his motives, noting that his house wasn't along her usual route, nor on any familiar path. He claimed concern for her safety, but her frustration boiled over. She snapped that he shouldn't act recklessly, emphasizing that he'd be responsible if his interference worsened her situation. She warned him not to jump in without thinking, as she feared he'd only make things worse. Despite her resistance, he grew more insistent, even at the gym where she sat alone on a bench. He offered to buy her lunch, but she responded with cold disdain, implying she was nothing more than a stray cat he happened to find. Although she appreciated his kindness, she doubted his purely altruistic motives, suspecting he might want something in return. She said she wasn't hungry, yet her stomach betrayed her, gurgling with hunger. Eventually, she relented and accepted a warm, tasty bun he offered. As she quietly ate, she couldn't help but wonder why the guy kept staring at her. He remarked that she looked cute, but Sarah was perplexed. How could anyone find her adorable, given her bruised face, scars, and the eye patch she wore? She puzzled over why he would treat her to lunch and compliment her appearance, despite their distant relationship. She harshly told him to back off, finding his motives transparent and frankly disgusting. Later that night, she sat on the playground swing, clutching the bun the guy had given her. Though confused, she couldn't dismiss that he had brought her another piece of food for dinner. Her thoughts spiraled. What was his true reason? Was he trying to act like a pet owner caring for a stray? The silence grew heavy as she pondered his intentions, feeling uneasy. She ate alone in contemplative silence, finding the situation increasingly gross. The next morning at school, the guy approached her once more, presenting a carefully packed lunch, an elaborate bento. Sarah's suspicions flared. She eyed the food skeptically, worried about unknown ingredients or potential tampering. She dismissed his gesture as an attempt to curry favor or garner attention, imagining him as the type to write love songs for his girlfriend's birthday, obsessively trying to impress through small acts of kindness. Later, her mother's invasive gaze and intrusive camera threatened her privacy further. She was forced to expose herself more than she was comfortable with, increasing her sense of vulnerability in a world that already felt hostile. She was criticized for not smiling, which made her look frightening in the picture. Sarah could only stand silently, her expression fierce and defiant. Her mother's anger grew as she questioned her gaze, venting her frustration, insisting she owed her life and implying that if she hadn't come along, Sarah could have had a better life. The hollering continued until Sarah, tears streaming down her face, begged for forgiveness and promised to obey, hoping that her compliance would bring peace. Only then did her mother cease her blows. The following day at school, the protagonist dared not approach Sarah. After classes, the protagonist finally confronted her, explaining that she seemed uninterested from the start. Sarah misinterpreted this, believing that the protagonist had grown tired of her kindness and had realized she wanted nothing to do with her, assuming he'd move on to someone else. Despite making a teasing remark, she still saw him as genuinely kind. Her kindness made her wonder if she could ask for something from him. She hesitantly asked if he would be willing to do something intimate with her, hoping this could be a chance. The protagonist refused without hesitation. Sarah, feeling that this would somehow save her, suddenly turned negative, harboring doubts about whether he truly wished to help. Instead, she convinced herself he was only interested in her for his own benefit, all her hopes crushed under the weight of suspicion that his kindness was merely self-serving. That night, Sarah lingered alone on the playground, despair deepening. She wished she didn't have to go back home, where a toxic atmosphere awaited her once more. The next day, she sat on the same bench in the school gym, where the protagonist prepared her lunch again. Sarah questioned whether he found satisfaction in caring for someone so pitiful, insinuating that he might enjoy feeling needed by those weaker than himself. She accused him of enjoying a moral high ground, openly criticizing his attitude. Suppressing her feelings, she expressed her dislike for his way of thinking and warned him not to use her to bolster his self-worth. As school ended and she prepared to leave, the protagonist unexpectedly admitted he liked her. Her frustration resurfaced. She sighed loudly and pointed out her bruised body, calling her unfriendly and criticizing her attitude. She wondered aloud how he could fall for her, suggesting that perhaps he was simply lusting after her or acting out of frustration. She accused him of not caring at all, claiming that his kindness was just a tactic to gain something in return, and labeled his behavior disgusting. That evening, returning home, Sarah felt a twinge of guilt for dismissing the protagonist earlier and for her toxic attitude, especially after he brought her dinner. She resolved to try being kinder to him starting the next day. While she ate, her mother suddenly entered the room, questioning what she was eating and where she had gotten the money for it. When she revealed that her classmate had given her the food, her mother reacted sharply, snatching it away and snapping that next time she should ask for something worthwhile. Shocked, Sarah looked around, unsure who her guest was tonight. Her mother chuckled, explaining that the visitor was an online acquaintance who had bought her teasing photos, pictures she had forcefully taken, and now fancied having her for the night. As the door opened, an elderly, bald man introduced himself, claiming he was just there for a good time. Sarah immediately refused, uncomfortable with his proposition. Her mother's anger surged at her refusal, raising her voice in frustration. The guest, indifferent to her rejection, slowly moved his hand under her skirt, attempting to be gentle. Reacting instinctively, Sarah kicked him in the face, causing him to bleed from his nose and lament that she had made a terrible mistake. After she apologized, she was beaten and bruised, and the man, realizing she was injured, decided to leave but promised to return once she recovered. The next day, her teacher and classmates showed no concern for her injuries. A fellow student approached her worriedly, asking if she was all right. Sarah, with a hard edge in her voice, dismissed his concern, indicating that her appearance was enough to tell she wasn't fine. Still, he persisted in asking. She told him to stop trying to earn her favor, calling his efforts annoying. She made it clear that her problems were none of his business and that he couldn't help her. She also questioned whether he could do anything to fix her situation and suggested that his actions might have contributed to what happened, implying that if he had acted differently, none of this would have occurred. Later that afternoon, the same student invited Sarah to stay at his house for the night. She suspected his intention was to protect her by abducting her, which she dismissed as childish. Although she recognized his motives as painfully obvious yet bizarre, her doubts about his courage to harm her led her to accept his offer. He assured her she would be safe so she could relax. Sarah, however, doubted she could truly unwind in the company of someone she didn't trust and didn't like. Still, she preferred it to going back home. She added that once she found someone better, she would be finished with him, but she looked forward to their dinner that evening. The boy smiled cheerfully at her words, which made Sarah question his demeanor. He admitted he was somewhat excited to let her stay at his place, but she saw it as a kind of refuge, not a fun sleepover. She also suspected that his seemingly caring attitude was motivated by ulterior motives, simply reacting out of helplessness. She simply asks that he refrain from making her feel uncomfortable, especially when he acts creepily around her. That evening, Sarah took a bath and was even lent a hoodie, as the MC apologized for lacking appropriate women's clothing. She didn't mind the size or what was on it, but disliked the idea of him watching her wear his shirt or similar. Later, as the MC prepared to cook, Sarah put on an apron to help, despite his insistence she didn't need to. She was persistent about helping in the kitchen, contemplating whether his affection was meant to make her dependent. However, she pushed that thought aside, determined to do things herself and not owe him anything. As unfortunate as it was, she had no plans to become reliant on him. The MC asked if she cooked often, to which she replied she'd never done so before. She expressed her desire to contribute, not leave everything to him, and asked for the knife to chop vegetables. While cutting, she accidentally nicked her finger and sat quietly while bandaging it. The MC lamented that it was a pity for such a pretty girl to get hurt, but Sarah reacted negatively, asking him not to be creepy. She added that a cut or two more didn't really matter anymore. He insisted he didn't want her to get hurt, but she reminded him it was none of his concern. Still, he pressed the point, leaving her feeling defeated and insisting she behave herself, not keeping him waiting. If she did, she would help regardless of how much she hurt herself. When food was served, Sarah took a bite and suddenly began to cry. The MC asked if she was okay, but she couldn't hold back tears and asked him not to look at her face. She called him annoying for fussing over every little thing and claimed it wasn't as serious as he thought. She asked to be left alone but silently reflected on how long it had been since she'd eaten a hot meal, which she found delicious. Later, as they prepared for bed, the MC proposed they eat together again the next day. Sarah wondered why she'd want to do that, feeling awkward about him watching her eat, but gradually admitted she appreciated his kindness and suggested breakfast with rice and miso soup. That night, the MC offered to sleep on the floor, asking Sarah to take the bed. She refused, saying it stank and she felt more comfortable on the ground, denying his hospitality. She also worried he might think she felt guilty or awkward and suggested they sleep together on the bed, calling him gross. Say chuckled happily with a small smile. As they went to sleep, the MC believed Sarah would rest peacefully. However, she admitted she wouldn't be able to relax with him nearby and found it hard to sleep in the same room. He mimicked his breathing, making it sound rough and intimidating. After a brief moment of silence, Sarah, in a soothing tone, asked something serious. She wondered why the protagonist was going so far for her, questioning whether he gained anything from it. Inside, she knew that with all her bruises and cuts, she couldn't be considered cute anymore. She also reflected on her toxic nature, acknowledging her negativity while in the hospital, regardless of his kindness. She cursed and called him names, speculating whether the protagonist had malice, even wondering if ugliness was his particular vice. At the same time, she questioned if he was secretly a masochistic pervert. The protagonist revealed that his only goal was to rescue her from her harsh reality. He wanted to show kindness despite her treatment of him and hoped for her bruises to heal both physically and emotionally. Hearing this, Sarah exhaled in relief. Turning away, she sneered playfully, calling him gross but with a smirk that softened her expression. That night, she felt a strange, pleasant warmth. As dawn broke, she greeted the protagonist, curious about his relieved expression. She wondered if he had feared she might run away when he awoke. She assured him that as long as he was useful, there was nothing to worry about. Encouraging him to do his best, she added with a smile, "That's when her stomach growled." They sat down to eat together, and he wondered whether her parents would ask the police to look for her since she had run away. Sarah reassured him that if such action was taken, her parents would be the ones at fault, not them. She confidently said they would remain safe, avoiding the label of kidnappers. She emphasized that he would protect her, and she wanted him to see this through to the end. On their way to school, the protagonist sheepishly admitted that going together made them look like a couple. Sarah wasn't bothered by it, but teased him about his delusions, insisting nothing would change if he kept behaving that way. Sitting close at school, he seemed happy, causing Sarah to comment that his grin was unsettling. She pointed out that even though they would be at home together, he still wanted to be close at school, which she found disturbing, given how peculiar he was. At lunchtime, he forgot to prepare her a bento box. She smiled and told him not to apologize, joking that she didn't have high expectations about his cooking skills anyway. Her laughter reflected her awareness of his busy, caring morning efforts, making breakfast, showing gratitude, and wanting to make up for the oversight. She looked forward to dinner with anticipation. When school ended, Sarah received an invitation for an after-school date. She remarked that he probably realized she owed him now and had no right to refuse. Calling him scum playfully, she expressed her amusement and acceptance. Despite her teasing words, she was actually happy to go. As they approached a food stall, Sarah was asked if she liked crepes. She revealed she had never tried one before, and quickly reassured the MC that he didn't need to buy her one, since she wasn't very hungry. Yet, in the end, the MC wanted her to experience the sensation of tasting a crepe. Hesitant at first, Sarah accepted the automated, or bot, crepes, feeling already satisfied from dinner. Still, the MC insisted she go ahead and give it a try. After taking a bite, she requested that the MC not stare so intently, teasing him for being a bit of a weirdo. All she could focus on was the sweet flavor, which she found surprisingly delightful. This simple experience sparked a small sense of amusement for her, something she found unexpectedly fun. As they strolled through the shops, the MC suggested they pick out some clothes for Sarah. She spotted a cute hoodie with a design she liked but hesitated, feeling she had already received enough from him and didn't want him to go to such trouble. Yet, the MC commented that she looked adorable and wanted to see her dressed up nicely. Mocking his comment as gross, she nonetheless relented, realizing she couldn't keep borrowing his clothes forever. When she tried it on, she received a compliment for how well it suited her immediately. Pondering if a bit of flattery could make her develop feelings, she called him gross again but admitted that she was happy at this moment. It was the first gift anyone had ever given her, and she wanted to cherish it. Returning home, Sarah was mesmerized and happy with her new clothes, even noticing the MC watching her closely. The MC was pleased that she liked them. She exclaimed that it was the first time she had worn such cute attire. Reflecting on her childhood, she recalled seeing all the other kids wearing stylish clothes, and how birthdays and Christmas had never truly felt meaningful to her, as she could always tell who was truly fortunate. She sighed, wondering if this happiness could last forever. The MC assured her he would try to make her happy from now on, making her giggle and question whether his words sounded like a proposal, especially since his declaration was kind of gross. When asked what she wanted for dinner, she said omurice, but then pouted upon realizing they had forgotten the eggs. Disappointed, she insisted on buying some eggs herself. After leaving as she had promised, hours went by, and she never returned. Days passed, and although the MC expected to see her at school, she showed up unexpectedly on a particular day, badly bruised and beaten. His worry deepened, and he considered seeking help from the police or a teacher. But Sarah refused, denying his kindness and insisting she had to handle everything herself. She declared that no matter how much her parents hurt her or how many bad things they did, she would endure. She also repeatedly told him to stop bothering her so much, even though he had been trying to support her, offering to make lunch for her, even though she never asked. He was so kind to her that it made her gag at the very thought, which she found enough. As tears streamed down her face, she wondered if she could ask for more. With tearful eyes, she wished to preserve this moment, knowing that if her parents discovered her, she might be forced to leave. She hated this prospect most of all because Sarah longed to be close to the main character, even if just for a little while. At lunchtime, he handed her a homemade bento. It seemed he had kept preparing it during all the times she was absent, waiting for her return. Apparently, it was the omurice she had desired. Sarah felt grateful and genuinely happy, despite her chaotic home life, convincing herself she could endure it. When school ended, he asked if Sarah was truly going home. She firmly replied that she had already had enough fun that day and was okay staying. He wanted her to stay a bit longer, but she insisted they meet again at school the next day. As she prepared to leave, he silently wrestled with his thoughts, aware that if she stayed away from home and her parents discovered she was with him, her situation could worsen. Even involving police might lead to consequences she'd dislike. Yet, deep down, he felt that letting her go right then would haunt him forever. He blurted out his feelings, proposing they run away together to somewhere far from all this. Sarah wondered if he was truly an idiot. If they did that, it would complicate his life too, even though he desperately wanted to stay with her. With a heavy sigh, she realized she just needed a little push to act and escape with him. Later that night, they hatched their plan. Sarah asked if he had a destination in mind. The main character admitted he didn't have a clue, only knowing he wanted to save her without a detailed plan. Sarah reassured him she wasn't worried, feeling happy just knowing he would run away with her. With determination in her eyes, she believed they could succeed even without a plan, even if caught. She wouldn't hate herself for it, The main character confidently assured her they would definitely escape, providing comfort to Sarah. He complimented her appearance with a hat, calling her adorable. Sarah found his compliment somewhat quick, teasing if that was enough to make her fall for him. She then suggested they consider disguises, hinting at different clothing to hide their identities. He agreed they could choose other outfits, but she was fine with the current ones and intended to stick with them. Finally, he asked if she was ready, noting they had all they needed, everything packed, and was eager to set out, ready to enjoy the homemade lunch he had prepared. Soon after arriving at a train station, the protagonist assures Sarah that she can rest assured of his protection, promising her a safe escape. Sarah wonders if she appears anxious to him, but in truth, she feels deeply secure being with him and trusts him completely. When they step off the train, the MC comments on her evident enjoyment, a smile playing on his face. Sarah admits that she has never been permitted to go on family trips or school excursions, making this outing the first time she's traveled far from home. She confesses that it's even more exciting because she's with the MC. As they walk toward a park illuminated only by moonlight, the MC apologizes for not securing a place to stay. Sarah reassures him that she's comfortable outdoors, finding the situation tolerable. She appreciates his kindness, especially when he offers her a jacket to fend off the cold, and admits she's genuinely having fun, simply spending the night alone with him. Suddenly, the MC feels compelled to share something personal. Without warning, he confesses his love for Sarah. Sarah questions whether she should be so sure, especially considering her rough appearance, her bruises, and her often rude attitude. She worries she's caused him trouble and questions if she's worthy of his affection. The MC responds by complimenting her ability to enjoy her food, joking about how adorable she looks when rice gets stuck around her lips. He also notes how she listens attentively, even when he's not sure she's interested, and admires her fashionable yet casual clothes. When he attempts to say more, Sarah interrupts, declaring that she understands and that his words are enough. She recognizes his feelings and admits they are dangerous, yet she also understands his sincerity. Without hesitation, she accepts his confession, agreeing to be his girlfriend and asking him to take good care of her. In that moment, their happiness seems to freeze in time. Suddenly, a shadowy, threatening figure appears behind her, clutching a knife. Sarah is swiftly grabbed at knife point, and she calls for the MC to return home, but he refuses to abandon her. Her main concern is her safety. Her mother, visibly upset and angry, intervenes. She accuses the MC of planting dangerous ideas in her daughter's head, revealing her hatred for him and vowing to see him dead. Fear and tears fill Sarah's eyes as she pleadingly asks her mother to let the MC go, promising to obey her commands to prevent him from getting hurt. Her mother, however, refuses to listen, venting her frustration as she berates them for having fun with a man she disapproves of. She threatens to punish them both. The MC tries to intervene as Sarah nearly faces the knife, but suddenly everything goes dark. The world fades into blackness, leaving only an unknown emptiness behind. Shortly after waking up, he seemed to have no memory of what had happened, his gaze fixed on an unfamiliar ceiling indicating he was in a hospital. Beside him, Sarah lay quietly, and the protagonist was relieved to see she was alive. Sarah herself worried about her own condition, fearing she might have been injured, but the truth was he had been seriously hurt because of her. Their rescue came unexpectedly from a neighbor who had stumbled upon them, remarking that he could have died if not for the passerby's timely intervention. She scolded him fiercely, calling him an idiot for his foolishness, asserting she wasn't worth saving and was glad he had survived only because of luck. Tears streamed down her face as she expressed her deep concern, stating she didn't know what she'd do if he had never woken up again. Despite her worries, she took a moment to thank him sincerely for saving her and expressed gratitude for their shared survival. After the chaos subsided and her mother was arrested for her crimes, Sarah found herself in the custody of the state, as her parents no longer existed. The protagonist apologized for the police becoming involved, but Sarah remained unfazed, insisting it wasn't his fault. The chaos was entirely caused by her mother. She lamented that they might never see each other again, despite her hopes that their bond would bring them happiness forever. Yet, she hesitated, uncertain if they could ever truly achieve that dream. Hearing her words, the protagonist wanted to hug Sarah. However, she teasingly dismissed the idea, suggesting it would be cooler if he simply did it without asking. Their final day together was filled with unspoken promises, and they parted with an unbreakable bond, vowing to meet again someday. 5 years drifted by since that promise, and they finally met once more on a park bench. The protagonist had struggled to find her and lacked any way to contact her earlier. Sarah apologized for this difficulty, admitting she could have reached out since she knew where he lived, but she hesitated, worried she might cause more trouble if she did. She praised him for his persistence in finding her, joking that if he was a stalker, it was a little frightening, yet he had succeeded. He then proposed that they live together, startling Sarah. She was taken aback, questioning whether he had even been listening to her. Conflicted, she explained that her presence might cause more problems, and she didn't want to be a burden again. She recalled how, 5 years prior, he had spoken to her every day without expecting anything in return, his kindness overwhelming. Despite the risks and his injuries from saving her, she felt grateful for the happiness they'd shared and couldn't ask for more. The protagonist gently encouraged her to ask for more, promising to dedicate himself to making her even happier from that moment onward. Forever. Sarah, smiling softly, seemed content, feeling that simply being with him already brought her happiness, and she hesitated to ask for anything beyond that. She believed she could never bring happiness to the MC, feeling instead that her presence might only cause him distress. Yet, the MC remained resolute in his desire to share joy with both of them. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she hesitantly questioned whether she could truly stay by his side, only for the MC to intensify his plea, begging her to remain. Suddenly, she grasped him tightly, tears of happiness spilling as she clung to him, declaring that they would never be apart again. She repeatedly professed her deep love, overwhelmed by her affection for him. Soon after, the MC invited Sarah to come over immediately, an offer that initially seemed inconvenient to her. She then accused him, mockingly, of trying to take advantage of a crying girl, calling him a creep. However, she knew herself well enough to realize that the MC was not that kind of person. Hunger struck her, and she expressed her desire to taste his renowned curry and omuris, admitting she might be a tad greedy for his delicious cooking. This marked a joyful resolution for the story, leading into the serene life that followed for them both. Back home, the MC had bought a variety of ingredients, eager to prepare many meals for Sarah, who loved his cooking and looked forward to spending more time together. She sat smiling softly, eager and content, her greatest wish being to remain beside the MC for the rest of her life. A few days later, Sarah appeared troubled, her serious demeanor catching the MC's attention. She assured him not to worry, but he insisted on hearing her out. She confided that his straightforwardness, while charming, made her feel vulnerable, especially since she had gained weight from the delicious meals he repeatedly prepared. After work, Sarah expressed concern that the MC might be tired from running around, especially since he didn't need to pick her up anymore. However, he worried about her well-being, prompting her to tease him for being overly cautious. Yet, her own appreciation grew from his constant care, and she felt grateful that he always came to pick her up. That evening, as they headed home, the MC mentioned he had received his paycheck and suggested going out for a meal. Sarah was pleased with such gestures of affection but insisted he should spend on himself and mentioned she was on a diet. Her stomach then grumbled, embarrassing her, and she decided to change clothes first. She also joked about starting her diet the next day and urged herself to stop indulging in treats at the park. The MC had packed a lunch for that day's outing, and Sarah gently urged him to take it easy on his days off, worried that preparing food by hand was tiring. Despite her concerns, she appreciated how much he thought about her happiness. Later that night, she planned to make him feel loved and fulfilled, both emotionally and physically, promising to bring him happiness in every way she could. The MC is initially confused by Sarah's ambiguous statement, which she quickly dismisses. Later at home, he questions whether her love is driven by a need for reassurance. However, it becomes evident that she genuinely cares for him every single day. She appreciates how he notices her feelings and consistently considers her happiness, which prompts her to openly express her love. This honest emotion makes Sarah feel a bit embarrassed but also more connected to him. That evening, they step outside under a starlit sky, and the MC can't help but smile broadly, describing his feelings as if he's on the edge of his seat. Sarah shares his excitement, reminiscing about the thrill of their earlier days together. Despite occasional feelings of fear and loneliness, she now finds contentment simply by being with him. She admits she is strangely comforted by how gentle and caring his hands are. In this moment, no fear seems to bother her anymore, knowing he is always by her side to support her. Hearing her words, Sarah begins to wonder if she deserves such happiness. Meanwhile, the MC is determined to make her even happier, filling the night with warmth and joy. The following day, he suggests they dine together again, aware that he just enjoys watching her eat. Sarah recognizes his motives as playful but endearing. She then invites him to go straight home early, eager to share the meal with him once more. That night, Sarah falls asleep with tears of joy streaming down her face, overwhelmed by her feelings. The next morning, the MC forgets to buy eggs for their dinner, although Sarah had been excited about making omelet that evening. She insists on buying the eggs herself, feeling that today she needs to prepare it as a sign of her affection. Recognizing his mistake, he offers to accompany her to ensure her safety, which she appreciates, as it reassures her of his reliability in difficult moments. While preparing the omelet, Sarah tries to help but insists he sit down and relax, not wanting to be spoiled or to become overly dependent on him. Yet, she admits she already finds it hard to live without him, admiring his personality more each day. As evening falls, Sarah gently says goodnight, thanking him for his hard work and expressing her gratitude for everything. Still, she hesitates, questioning if it's truly right to say goodnight when she wishes he was right beside her to share her dreams. The MC assures her he will be there in her heart as they fall asleep in a warm embrace. The following morning, the MC remains unaware that evening has fallen, because he's been sleeping peacefully, exhausted from their late-night activities. Sarah playfully serves him omelet in a somewhat messy appearance, asking him to overlook its presentation. He eats without complaint, and her affection for him deepens even further. Later, he apologizes for oversleeping on his day off, but she assures him it doesn't bother her. She sees it as a chance for them to relax and cuddle more, looking forward to doing so again starting tomorrow. With each passing day, Sarah finds his cooking made with genuine love becoming even more delicious. Her desire to savor his culinary creations forever grows stronger, and she unintentionally blurts out this longing, startling herself with the admission. As the new year approaches, they spend time in the garden playing with fireworks, and the MC reminds her to be careful not to hurt herself. Her concern for him remains strong, though she rarely sees him as overly nosy. Still, she appreciates that he cares and worries about her, and she doesn't take such attentiveness for granted. If their closeness continues to deepen, she believes it would make her even happier in the future. One night, the MC gives Sarah a new pair of loungewear she loves deeply, praising it for being both adorable and warm. She smiles, content, knowing that her partner's thoughtfulness truly makes her happy. That same evening, the MC plans to stay overnight, and Sarah recognizes his effort, feeling grateful for his desire to share these moments. As the year draws to a close, she enjoys eating burgers, and the MC suggests they indulge in them again next year, implying he'll be with her then, which fills her with warmth. Looking even further ahead, she dreams of spending many more years together, having finally found someone who makes her feel truly special, and she eagerly anticipates these times to come. Next Halloween, the MC inquires whether Sarah will don a costume, but she admits she hasn't worn one since childhood and feels it might be too late now. Still, she's willing to cosplay for him if it makes him happy, especially if he requests a stylish, elegant outfit for her. She complies with his wishes, and he compliments her cuteness, making her feel appreciated. Grateful for his presence and understanding, she asks playfully if they should go trick-or-treating, with the MC jokingly choosing trick, hinting at longer nighttime adventures together, highlighting the healthy and joyful nature of their relationship. One evening, the MC returns home late and apologizes to Sarah. She reassures him that she isn't angry, only worried, and gently asks him to let her know beforehand if he might be delayed. Curious, she questions why he was late, and he reveals he brought her favorite sweets from a popular bakery, the ones she had always wanted. Blushing at his kind gesture, she forgives his lateness, feeling touched. Later, the MC asks if she wants anything for Christmas, but Sarah shares that her family's circumstances don't leave much room for gifts. She feels immensely grateful just to enjoy his delicious cooking and their cozy home, and even if she asked for more, nothing immediately comes to mind. Still, she admits that what she truly wants is to be with him, a wish she quickly feels embarrassed about and tries to clarify, stating she simply wants to spend Christmas together. Understanding her feelings, the MC hopes to fulfill her desire, and this only makes Sarah look forward to the holiday even more. Sarah planned to give the MC chocolates for White Day, but her attempt was imperfect, resulting in a delay. She admitted that she had made them for the first time. Seeing her sincere effort, the MC wanted to share her rejects too. Though flawed, she still prepared them just for him. Hearing this made Sarah feel truly joyful, her heart swelling with love for him. The next morning, she was surprised to find herself dressed in a cat costume. The MC enthusiastically expressed how much he loved her new look. As the day progressed, the MC noticed Sarah enjoying the bread she often ate, revealing it was her favorite pastry. It also reminded her of the first food she received from him, an act of kindness that marked the beginning of their connection. She mused that he might not remember that moment, though for her, it was forever etched in memory. Back then, she was covered in bruises, her eyes filled with resentment and difficulty in approaching others. It likely took great courage for the MC to speak to her then. That simple loaf of bread had become their medium of communication. It was a token of comfort during her vulnerable time. Though she kept the true reason to herself, she could only smile fondly when thinking about it, feeling a sense of warmth. In the afternoon, Sarah returned home to the enticing aroma of curry cooking, filling her with happiness. She appreciated his efforts, especially after a long day at work, and expressed her gratitude. She hinted subtly at plans for the evening, including washing dishes or giving him a flirtatious look to hint at something special later that night. When the MC came back from work, Sarah asked if he preferred dinner, a bath, or perhaps a warm hug to welcome him home. On Valentine's Day, he gifted her a present, making her joyful since today was White Day. Her happiness deepened, knowing that her feelings had been reciprocated and that their love was mutual. Soon after, Sarah began crying softly and breathing heavily. She explained she had caught hay fever, apologizing for worrying him unnecessarily. The MC, a worrywart, was relieved to see her okay. She appreciated his concern, grateful that he always looked out for her. The next morning, Sarah appeared adorable in a simple dress, something she couldn't do before, when she was covered in bruises. Thanks to his support, her life had changed markedly. Before he left for work, she hugged and kissed him softly, urging him to do his best. As days off arrived, the MC was anxious about the rain, but Sarah was delighted. They stayed home alone, determined to make it the best day off he had ever had. That evening, the MC hesitated to sleep early despite knowing he had work the next day. Sarah considered staying awake just to spend more time together, her fierce gaze revealing her desire to share a quiet, intimate night with him. Their life together continued smoothly, with the MC often praising her cuteness. In the past, she had been negative and critical of herself, but now she appreciated his love and support. Every day, she felt grateful for his steadfast affection, cherishing their shared moments of happiness and connection. The following day, the main character brings a large supply of groceries, eager to prepare a variety of dishes for her. Sarah nods in agreement, recognizing his talent in the kitchen, knowing his cooking is truly exceptional. She seems to crave his Omir rice once more, yet her deepest desire is to remain by his side forever, which she holds as her highest aspiration. This marks the final chapter, the official conclusion, with no further updates about my former classmate. Thank you for your attention.